There's a voice inside every woman that whispers, "You're not ready. You're not enough." Today, that voice ends here. Because the truth is simple: leadership doesn't wait for perfection. It demands confidence. Not the loud kind, not arrogance, but the deep, unshakable belief that you belong in every room you walk into. This is not a pep talk. This is your awakening. Let's talk about the force that separates the leaders from the forgotten. Confidence. And why it's the key, not a key, the key to success. You don't wait for someone to hand you confidence like a gift wrapped in approval. Confidence is not awarded, it is claimed. It begins the moment you stop seeking permission to exist fully and start showing up exactly as you are: bold, flawed, real. Too many women are taught to shrink, to soften, to ask nicely. We're conditioned to wait for the right moment, the right look, the right amount of experience before stepping up. But leadership doesn't come to those who wait. It comes to those who declare themselves ready before the world agrees. Confidence is the quiet decision to stop shrinking and start owning space, even if your voice trembles the first time you speak. Think about it. How many times have you held back because you were afraid of not being enough? Afraid you didn't check every box, have every qualification, meet every standard? That fear doesn't go away with time, it fades only when you start acting in spite of it. Confidence is that first step, the decision to stand up in a room full of doubt and say, "I belong here." That moment isn't granted to you by anyone else. It's a line you draw in your own heart. And once you cross it, everything changes. The room doesn't have to welcome you. The people don't have to clap. But you show up anyway. And that is where true leadership begins. There is no map for confidence. There is no checklist. It's not about being the loudest person in the room. It's about being the clearest, the most grounded, the most certain of your place at the table. When you choose confidence, you stop asking, "Am I good enough?" and start asking, "What impact can I make?" That shift changes everything. You move from proving to leading, from surviving to building, from waiting to becoming. Confidence takes you from the sidelines of your own life and puts you at the center of your purpose. It's important to understand that choosing confidence doesn't mean you'll never feel fear again. It means you'll move through it. Confidence isn't the absence of doubt, it's the refusal to be controlled by it. Every time you show up, even when you're nervous, every time you take the mic, even when your heart is racing, you're telling the world, "I may not be perfect, but I'm powerful." That choice, repeated over and over, builds resilience. It becomes the foundation for a leadership style that isn't dependent on external approval, it's rooted in internal truth. Confidence also means showing up as your full self, not a watered-down version. You don't need to dress it up with titles or hide behind overcompensation. The most powerful women leaders aren't the ones trying to mimic someone else's path, they're the ones unapologetically carving their own. They've chosen to trust their instincts. They've chosen to trust their vision. And most importantly, they've chosen to trust themselves. That's the kind of confidence that commands attention without ever needing to beg for it. When you choose confidence, you rewrite the story others try to write for you. You become the author of your own voice, your own narrative, your own power. And that choice is made every single day in the way you speak, the way you walk, the way you sit at the table. It's made in silence and in statements. It's made not when everything is easy, but when everything is uncertain. Because the women who lead the world are not waiting for the world to say yes. They are building doors where there were once walls. They are stepping forward before the applause, before the recognition, before the acceptance. That's the truth of confidence. It starts from within, and once you claim it, no one can take it from you. The world will doubt you. It's not always loud or obvious, it can be subtle, hidden behind polite dismissals, master's feedback, wrapped in backhanded compliments. A man is called assertive, a woman, aggressive. A man is a leader, a woman, too ambitious. From the moment begins to lead, to speak up, to take space, the world starts looking for ways to cut her down to size. And that's exactly why your confidence cannot be negotiable. It has to be solid, built from the inside out. Because when the world questions your value, you must not join in that conversation. You must answer with presence, with purpose, with unshakable belief in who you are. It is not your job to make people comfortable with your power. Let that settle in. Your job is not to shrink so others can feel tall. Your confidence must be bigger than their discomfort. Because you will be interrupted, you will be talked over. You will be underestimated in rooms full of people who expect you to stay silent. That's when you rise. That's when you speak with even more clarity, more conviction. Leadership is not about getting louder than the noise, it's about knowing that your message matters, even when no one is ready to hear it, especially then. Because change doesn't come from echo chambers, it comes from courageous voices. Confidence is not arrogance, it's clarity. And when you're clear on who you are and what you stand for, no amount of dismissal can shake you. You learn to separate your identity from other people's inability to recognize your worth. Just because they don't see your value doesn't mean it's not there. Let them doubt. Let them stare. Let them underestimate you. But let them never see you shrink. The moment you anchor your confidence in your own truth, you become unshakable. The world may not hand you the title, but that doesn't mean you stop leading. What you do when you're dismissed matters more than what you do when you're celebrated. Anyone can stand tall when they're praised, but leadership is built in the shadows when the applause is absent, when the support is missing, when you're the only one advocating for your vision. Those are the moments that shape leaders. When you keep showing up, not because they believe in you, but because you do. When you walk into the room knowing your presence belongs there, even if no one else has said it out loud yet. That is the power of true confidence, showing up as if you've already been invited to the table because you know your worth doesn't need permission. You don't have to respond to every doubter. You don't have to explain your ambition to people committed to misunderstanding it. Let your work speak. Let your presence speak. Let your leadership speak. Confidence doesn't shout. It doesn't beg. It simply stands calm, clear, powerful. When you believe in your vision, your energy shifts. People can feel it before you say a word. You walk into meetings differently. You make decisions differently. You're no longer leading to prove anything, you're leading to build something. The truth is, the world may never fully be ready for a confident, unapologetic woman in power. And that's okay. Because your leadership is not conditional. It doesn't depend on acceptance. It doesn't wait for applause. Confidence is the foundation that allows you to keep moving forward even when every external sign says pause. It's what reminds you that your voice matters, your ideas are valid, and your presence is powerful even when the world hasn't caught up yet. Confidence isn't just about how you see yourself, it's about how you refuse to be diminished, no matter how they see you. Confidence isn't born in comfort. It's not something that grows when everything feels easy, familiar, and safe. It's built in the moments that stretch you, challenge you, and push you far beyond what you thought you were capable of. Discomfort is not a sign you're failing, it's a sign you're expanding. Every leader, every woman who's risen to power has walked through fire. She stood in rooms where she didn't have all the answers. She's faced challenges she wasn't sure she could overcome. But she didn't run from the discomfort. She stepped into it. Because confidence is not found on the sidelines. It's earned in the arena. Think about the first time you were asked to do something you'd never done before. Maybe it was leading a team, speaking publicly, or presenting a bold idea that knot in your stomach. That was growth. That fear in your chest, that was your edge. Confidence doesn't whisper to you when you're fully prepared, it tests you when you're unsure. When you move forward anyway, even with the doubt, even with the fear, you teach yourself something vital, that you can trust your own strength. That you don't have to feel ready to be ready. That's where real leadership begins, not in certainty, but in courage. The truth is, most people are waiting for fear to disappear before they act. But fear doesn't vanish. It's part of the process. The difference between those who lead and those who lead is that leaders act through the fear. They understand that fear is not the enemy, stagnation is. If you wait to feel confident before you move, you stay stuck forever. Confidence is built by doing the hard thing over and over until your mind learns what your heart already knew. You were capable all along. It's in that repetition, in that bravery, that confidence takes root. Every time you speak up in a meeting where you feel like the outsider, you are building confidence. Every time you say yes to an opportunity that scares you, you are laying the foundation of leadership. It's not about being fearless, it's about choosing to move while fear rides in the back seat. Confidence grows when you stop waiting for perfect conditions. You don't need every credential, every green light, every piece of validation. You need to start and then keep going. That momentum creates something stronger than temporary courage. It creates a permanent belief in your own ability to figure it out. You're not supposed to feel 100% ready. If you do, you're not growing. Growth always comes with tension. Always. That unease you feel when you're about to step into something new. That's proof you're doing something that matters. Confidence doesn't come from staying in your lane, it comes from making bold turns, taking detours, and rewriting the map as you go. Leaders aren't the ones who've mastered it all. They're the ones who've embraced the unknown and kept showing up. That's the secret no one tells you. The confidence you admire in others. It was built in private battles, silent doubts, and relentless perseverance. Discomfort is not the enemy. It's the proving ground. It's where resilience is born. It's where you learn what you're made of. Every stretch, every challenge, every uncomfortable step forward is refining you, sharpening you, preparing you for the weight of real leadership. Because when you've walked through hard things and chosen not to shrink, that confidence becomes unbreakable. Not because everything went right, but because you kept rising when it didn't. That kind of confidence can't be taught. It can only be earned. And it's earned one brave decision at a time. Perfection is a myth and illusion sold to women as a requirement for success. We are taught to polish every word, control every expression, and calculate every step. We're told to smile more, soften our tone, wait and ready. But leadership doesn't care about perfection. It responds to presence. It sees power in authenticity. When you walk into a room, the question is not, is she perfect? The real question is, does she own who she is? That's presence. It's the energy that commands attention, not by force, but by truth. And the moment you stop chasing perfect and start embracing presence, everything shifts. Presence isn't about being the loudest or the most polished, it's about being the most rooted. It's that unmistakable energy of someone who knows who they are, what they bring, and why they're in the room. You don't need the flashiest resume or the most eloquent words. You need to speak from clarity. When you speak from presence, your words carry weight because they're real. People can feel the difference between someone trying to impress and someone simply being aligned. That alignment, that inner confidence is what creates impact. And that impact doesn't require perfection. It requires honesty. So many women stay silent, waiting for the perfect moment, waiting to speak until they've memorized every detail, waiting to lead until they feel bulletproof. But that moment never comes. Because perfection is not the doorway to leadership, courage is. And courage lives in presence. When you show up fully, flaws and all, you remind the world that leadership isn't about being untouchable, it's about being real, relatable, human. The greatest leaders are not flawless, they are transparent. And it's their presence, not their perfection, that builds trust, connection, and influence. You don't have to prove you belong by being the best at everything. You prove you belong by being present, powerful, unapologetic. You've already earned your space by showing up, by doing the work, by bringing your vision forward. Now is not the time to hide behind fear of imperfection. Now is the time to lead with your presence, to take up space, to make eye contact, to speak without shrinking. Because when you walk into a room like you own your story, people listen differently. When you stop editing yourself, others start taking you more seriously. Presence is magnetic. It draws people in not because you're flawless, but because you're fearless about being fully seen. That kind of energy can't be faked. It comes from doing the inner work, from knowing who you are beyond titles and achievements. It comes from embracing your voice without constantly second-guessing it. When you speak with presence, you don't just deliver information, you deliver energy, certainty, vision. You don't need every answer. You just need to be anchored in your truth. Because presence is not about performance, it's about power. Quiet power. Grounded power. Unshakable power. The world doesn't need more perfect women, it needs more women who lead from presence. Women who show up even when they're unsure. Women who speak up even when their voice shakes. Women who refuse to disappear just to make others comfortable. That's what leadership looks like today. It's not clean, it's not polished. It's real, it's raw, and it's transformational. Presence says, I may not have it all figured out, but I know who I am and why I'm here. And in a world obsessed with surface, that kind of authenticity becomes unstoppable. Leadership is not just about strategy or skill, it's deeply personal. It's about knowing yourself so thoroughly that your decisions, your presence, your voice come from a place of unwavering clarity. And that begins with self-trust. If you don't trust yourself, every step feels shaky. Every challenge feels like a threat. Every new opportunity feels like a test you're about to fail. But when you build trust in yourself, you become unshakable. You stop looking for constant validation. You stop second-guessing every move. You begin leading from your core, not from your insecurities. And that's where real power lies, not in perfection, but in self-belief. Self-trust doesn't mean you'll never make mistakes. It means you trust yourself enough to recover, to learn, to pivot. That's the difference. Women are often held to impossible standards. We feel we must always be right, always be prepared, always be ahead. But leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about having the resilience to face the unknown. When you trust yourself, you know you can walk into any room, face any decision, navigate in crisis, and still remain whole. You may not always win, but you'll always grow. That inner foundation becomes your compass. You stop asking, what if I fail, and start asking, what will I become if I try? The world will try to shake your confidence. Doubt will come from every direction, from colleagues, from competitors, from your own inner critic. And if you don't have a strong relationship with yourself, those voices will get louder than your own. That's why self-trust isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. It's the armor that keeps you focused. It's the voice that says you've got this even when no one else is cheering. Building that trust is a daily practice. It's in the promises you keep to yourself, the boundaries you set, the way you speak to yourself when things go wrong. You become your own leader long before the world recognizes you as one. One of the most radical things a woman can do in leadership is to trust her instincts. That intuition, it's not just emotion, it's intelligence. It's lived experience. It's pattern recognition. It's a voice honed through challenges and survival and deep observation. Yet so many women are taught to dismiss it, to defer to someone else's opinion, to check with others before speaking up. But your instincts are not liabilities, they are assets. They are tools. And the more you trust them, the sharper they become. Leading with instinct is not reckless, it's deeply wise. It means you're listening not just to the noise outside, but to the truth inside. Building self-trust also means letting go of the need to be liked. That's a hard truth. Especially for women, who are so often socialized to prioritize harmony over honesty. But leadership is not about popularity. It's about impact. Often means saying the hard thing, making the bold move, disrupting the norm. You can't do that if you're constantly trying to keep everyone happy. When you trust yourself, you stop needing universal approval. You become okay with discomfort. You understand that not everyone will agree, but that doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're leading with conviction, not compromise. At the end of the day, self-trust is the bedrock of leadership. It's what allows you to keep going when the path is unclear, to keep building when results are slow, to keep believing when the world tells you to quit. You don't wait for someone to validate your vision, you validate it yourself. You don't wait to be chosen, you choose yourself. And that choice, repeated again and again, becomes the quiet strength behind every powerful decision. The leader who trusts herself becomes a force not because she's perfect, but because she's rooted, grounded, unapologetically sure of who she is. And where she's headed. Power is not something you wait to be handed, it's something you claim. As women in leadership, we're too often taught to wait. Wait to be asked, wait to be noticed, wait to be given permission. But real power doesn't come from someone else's approval, it comes from the moment you decide that you are enough. Right now. Not when you have more experience, not when you've ticked off another goal, not when someone finally validates your potential. The moment you stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself, everything changes. The moment you stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself, everything changes. That's the first step to owning your power, realizing it's already yours. Owning your power means stepping into rooms without apologizing for your presence. It means no longer dimming your light so someone else can shine. It's about rejecting the idea that being powerful makes you intimidating. Because here's the truth, your presence will challenge people who are used to women being quiet. Your ambition will disrupt those who are comfortable with the status quo. That's not a problem, that's leadership. Power isn't about empowering others, it's about standing in your truth so fully that others are forced to confront their own limits. You don't have to explain your strength, you just have to own it. We've been conditioned to believe that humility means hiding our strengths, but humility is not invisibility. True humility is knowing your worth without needing to shout it and still never backing down from it. Owning your power is not arrogance, it's ownership. It's taking responsibility for your voice, your brilliance, your presence. It's showing up without waiting for a script. It's saying, I belong here even when no one else offers you a chair. When you own your power, you stop performing and start being. That's where influence is born, from the woman who is no longer asking if she's too much. The moment you begin to own your power, you also begin to redefine what power looks like. It's not always loud. It's not always at the front of the room. Sometimes it's the calm voice that brings clarity in chaos. Sometimes it's the decision to speak up when silence would be safer. Sometimes it's choosing to lead with empathy in a world that praises detachment. Power is not one-dimensional, it's dynamic, and as a woman in leadership, you get to expand the definition. You get to lead your way, not someone else's version. That's the beauty of owning your power, it liberates others to do the same. To own your power means to stop asking for permission to be great. It means stepping into your gifts fully and unapologetically. It means recognizing that you have something valuable to offer, whether the world is ready for it or not. That's a radical shift, because we're taught to play nice, to not ruffle feathers, to stay within the lines. But power doesn't grow in confinement. It grows in courage. When you finally give yourself permission to take up space, to lead boldly, to live loudly, you stop waiting for the door to open and start building your own. That's what owning power looks like: movement, vision, and unstoppable energy. And perhaps the most transformative part of owning your power is that it inspires others to do the same. When a woman owns her power, she becomes a mirror. She gives other women permission to rise, to lead, to speak. She changes the room just by entering it. She redefines the standards. She becomes the example. Not because she's perfect, not because she's fearless, but because she's authentic. Owning your power isn't just a personal act, it's a collective one. It sends a message that we are here, we are ready, and we are not waiting anymore. We are leading. Now, visibility is not vanity, it's responsibility. As a woman in leadership, your voice matters not just for you, but for everyone watching you. We are often taught to keep our heads down, let the work speak for itself, and not draw too much attention. But here's the truth. Silence doesn't change systems. Invisibility doesn't open doors. And humility doesn't mean hiding. If you're doing the work, if you're showing up, if you're leading with integrity, then the world needs to see you. Your visibility gives others permission to rise. When you show up fully, you're not just representing yourself, you're reshaping what leadership looks like. You cannot wait for the perfect moment to be seen. You must step into the spotlight on your own terms. Not when you've crossed off every goal. Not when you feel flawless. Because someone out there needs to see a woman like you leading, speaking, creating change. Visibility means showing your process, not just your polished results. It means sharing the lessons, the setbacks, the journey, not just the highlight reel. And in doing that, you make leadership more human. You make it more possible. Visibility is not about ego. It's about legacy. It's about impact. And it starts with the decision to stop shrinking. There's a narrative that strong women are too much, too bold, too loud, too confident. So we pull back, we edit ourselves, we stay small. But leadership requires you to take up space, to stand unapologetically in the center of your vision. When you step forward and claim visibility, you disrupt the pattern. You shift the energy. You say to the world, I refuse to disappear to make others comfortable. That's not arrogance, it's alignment. Visibility isn't about outshining others. It's about fully embodying who you are. Because when you're fully seen, you make space for others to be seen too. Visibility also requires consistency. It's not about one big moment, it's about showing up again and again. Even when it's hard, even when no one claps, even when imposter syndrome whispers that you don't belong. It's about choosing to be present, to speak up, to lead in every room you enter. Your voice, your ideas, your perspective, they matter. But they only make an impact when they're heard. And that means committing to visibility, not just when it's convenient, but when it's necessary, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. Because that's where the real shift begins. There will always be critics. Always people who want to question your right to be seen, to be heard, to lead. But you weren't born to blend in. You were born to build. And building requires boldness. It requires resilience. It requires the kind of visibility that says, I know who I am. I know what I bring. And I will not be silenced. Visibility is an act of defiance in a world that still tries to erase powerful women. It's an act of leadership, of courage, of service, because every time you choose to be visible, you're telling someone else that they can be too. So, show up, speak up, step forward, Your leadership isn't just about climbing, it's about lifting. And you can't lift others if you're hiding in the shadows. Visibility is about owning your presence so boldly that your very existence becomes a challenge to outdated norms. You're not just representing yourself, you're representing every woman who didn't get the chance, who was told she wasn't ready, who was told she was too much. Be seen. Be bold. Be the proof that leadership can look like you, because when you lead visibly, you lead powerfully. And that is how the world begins to change. So let this be your call, not just to rise, but to rise visibly, powerfully, and unapologetically. You are not here to fit in. You are here to see, to shift, to redefine what leadership looks like. Confidence is not a trait you're born with. It's a decision you make every single day. To trust your voice, to own your power, to show up even when it's uncomfortable. Leadership is not about waiting for permission, it's about walking in your purpose. You are more than ready. The world doesn't need another silent leader, it needs you loud, clear, unstoppable. So step into the light and never look back.